Is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 66 of That's No Moon Pod. First Sunday edition of the pod. Gonna try to make it a weekly thing. Gonna start pumping these out more often as I can. Um, just watched X-Men 97 episode 3 this past week. We had the newest episode of the Bad Batch season 3 with Asajj Ventress. And we got some more Acolyte Star Wars rumors going around. A little bit of Marvel stuff here and there. Um, I'll start off with X-Men 97, episode 3. I thought this one was for sure the best episode so far this season. I really liked the tone of it, the pacing. Had like a nice horror slash kind of had some anime elements in it as well. I love seeing Sinister, easily one of the best villains that the X-Men have for sure. And it's crazy how much they could fit within a 30-minute episode without it feeling like it was too rushed. You could get away with that a lot more easily with animation than you can live action. I was wondering what they were going to do with the whole cliffhanger from last week with the whole Jean Grey. Who's the real Jean Grey? And come to find out, the real one was actually under some sinister mind control. Completely forgot all her memories and all that. The one that ends up returning to the Xavier Mansion. And pretty much the whole thing is Sinister wants Cyclops and Jean Grey's son, Nathan. And we all know who Nathan is and who he eventually becomes, which is Cable. And this episode does a nice job of setting things up on how exactly Nathan Summers gets to where he goes and eventually becomes who he becomes. Um, Again, the animation style I think is really working. It has that throwback kind of style of animation, but has like a modern twist to it as well. I'm getting more used to the voice actors for sure. They're starting to grow on me a lot more. Um, the visuals in this episode were crazy. Some parts felt like some Doctor Strange type stuff. Um, Sinister just making his presence known, making it seem like just one of those villains that you don't want to be running into. Um, and it was just cool the way that they used the evil version of Jean Grey, made her look all sexy and just kind of real throwback type again. Um, we all know how Rogue was bodied up in the '90s cartoon, and comic books in general have always kind of made the female characters a lot more attractive. It really boosted up their appearances, and obviously it's intentional. They got a lot of like young kids and just overall, I guess men for the most part were reading comic books back then. A lot more women for sure are into the genre these days than there ever were. But back then they were targeting, you know, teenage boys and, just overall men in general who were reading the comic book. So to make the female characters that much more appealing and attractive kind of just works in their favor. And even though they did pretty much take away Rogue's booty from the original. Still, they kind of give you all those classic elements of the characters, and they did that with the evil version of Jean Grey. I thought um, Sinister again, just one of my favorite X-Men villains for sure. Um, just this whole episode had a real daunting feel to it. You didn't know exactly what was going to happen, and then we come to find out that he does end up infecting Nathan Summers with the techno virus or whatever, which is exactly how we see Cable and what he deals with in his life in the future. And then once the X-Men kind of get the evil Jean Grey back on their side, and the clone version winds up getting in her mind and pretty much giving her the ability to remember everything, um, and just help them defeat Sinister and get back Nathan. I really liked how everyone kind of played off of each other, and just seeing the decisions that Cyclops and Jean Grey have to make. They got to give Nathan a bishop so that way he could go into the future. He says he knows a guy who could help, and with that, that pretty much means that they're probably not going to see their kid for a real long time. And by the time that they do, he's going to be a grown man with all these crazy abilities and, somewhat with this remorse because his parents, not willingly, but for the sake of his life, had to give him up. Um, and then that whole end scene with Storm, she's chilling at a bar in Texas, and then Forge walks in, and Forge pretty much, you can pretty much just make anything, and he tells her that he can help her out by getting her powers back, and then that's kind of where we leave off. So I'm glad that we're probably going to get more Storm, and hopefully she gets her abilities back. Because without her, for sure, the X-Men just don't feel as complete. She's one of the mains for sure. Um, but I'm really digging the show. Each week, I feel like it's starting to get better and better. I think a lot of the fans are also responding to it really positively, and it's just cool because one of these things, especially these type of characters, the X-Men have a big fan base, and for them to be doing it justice like this really bodes well for what we can get eventually in the future with the X-Men. Because Marvel, they need to do something with them quick. And obviously, we're getting Deadpool 3 this year. But, once that whole deal got done with them getting the rights back to the X-Men, everyone was just waiting for everything that we could possibly get from the X-Men. There's rumors right now that one of the Avengers movies could possibly be the Avengers versus the X-Men, um, which I would be totally down for. I think Marvel needs to give us something that's going to have the fans choose a side again, kind of like they did with Civil War. Um, because X-Men again has such a big fan base, and right now, how the Avengers are looking doesn't seem as obviously complete, but it seems like they're kind of just rolling out the B team. And until we get some more properties and just overall more movies coming out in the future with all these newer superheroes, I think right now Marvel just needs to do what they've always done best and pump out these bigger characters and stop trying to rely on these lesser known characters, and hopefully they stick and eventually become bigger characters. I feel like for a while they've been trying to kind of look for that Guardians of the Galaxy type deal, bringing in these unknown characters and then turning into household names. Um, so I'm hoping that they could do something big with the X Men instead of just kind of peppering them in here and there. I know that there was some reshoots done for Deadpool 3. Not exactly sure exactly what they were, but I'm pretty sure they used that movie to kind of help shape whatever future that they want to go in. And that's with the X-Men and just overall what we can expect from the MCU going forward. Deadpool 3 is going to tell us a lot, and it's going to kind of, let us know what exactly we can expect in the future. But I mean, Avengers versus X-Men movie, I think that would be insane. Um, because yeah, I think there's a lot of um, just the characters that they kind of have lined up to eventually be in the new Avengers. Um, I don't think the fan base is as strong for those characters for sure as our original ones. So unless they somehow bring back Chris Evans, Robert Downey, um, they still got Tom Holland, so they're gonna need him. But it's gonna be hard to get these fans to accept these newer Avengers, especially when we got Fantastic Four coming in. I think that's gonna win over a lot of people as well, especially if they do it really well. And then you got the X Men. So those two teams right there are already, I think, your best bet, and I think that's why they're dropping Deadpool 3. They announced a Fantastic Four movie with the cast. So I think they're gonna start to kind of get on a little bit of a roll with the whole just getting the fans back and kind of slowly starting to win them over again. Uh, Florence Pugh shared some clip of her on set, and she was in her old costume for the Thunderbolts movie. That movie was just constantly going through hurdles up until this point, and now it's pretty much on pace now, I guess, to release whenever it's supposed to. But the whole thing with Steven Yeun dropping out, um, and there's just been a whole lot of controversy. Um, Obviously, the actor played Thunderbolt Ross passed away as well, so that kind of slowed things down again. Um, I'm curious on what exactly is going to happen because I know Harrison Ford is supposed to play Red Hulk, if I'm not mistaken, which that sounds interesting to say the least. Um, One thing I heard yesterday actually was that for whatever reason, the Thunderbolts, their name in the movie comes from Yelena's soccer team or somebody's soccer team in the movie. And that's why they're called the Thunderbolts. And I'm not digging that at all. I don't see, if that's true, I don't see why they would decide to change the name of the team based off someone's like soccer team. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Um, so hopefully that rumor is not true, but it probably is, right? Um, for some reason, because this movie has been in development for a while now, and probably around the time where Marvel was just kind of spewing out these different things to kind of change things up for the sake of it. There's a lot of projects that have been announced, but probably not going to see the light of day, um, especially TV shows. I think, again, they're holding back on kind of these side characters, if you will, and instead of trying to make these lesser known characters household names, they're going to just start pumping out something that they know will stick. Um, I really think they need to make another Hulk movie. And for some reason, um, the Hulk has just been something within Marvel that has not, they just haven't been able to execute the Hulk properly. I feel like he was great in the first Avengers. Um, Obviously, the Incredible Hulk movie, um, one of the first MCU movies that we got. And I thought that movie was cool. I still like it. Definitely not one of the best Marvel movies, but it was real early on, and I think at that point they hadn't gotten into their groove yet with the superhero movies. But the Hulk, I think, is something that Marvel needs to do or try to figure out, whether it's with Mark Ruffalo or someone else. But I think a Hulk movie would really go a long way with the fans because everyone knows who the Hulk is. He's pretty much as household of a character as you could get. Um, Kids love him. Um, Sell a lot of merch, and I think if they're able to do something a lot bigger with the Incredible Hulk, whether it's a World War Hulk type movie, you bring in Maestro, um, because it just seems like they continue to kind of just, I wouldn't say dumb down the character, but in a way they kind of did, and he kind of had less and less to do with. Um, Mark Ruffalo was, he did what he could with the character, and I thought he did a great job. Thought he's great as the Hulk. Um, but I had heard that he was told by Kevin Feige that he's never gonna get a Hulk movie, and I don't know if that's some type of swerve or something. But again, I think people love Mark Ruffalo. People for sure love the Hulk, and if they're able to kind of figure out some type of way to bring him in, whether it's again World War Hulk, you make him the villain of something. Um, I think that'd be great. Um, but yeah, also the Bad Batch. We got the latest episode this week, finally featuring Asajj Ventress. Somehow, Asajj Ventress has returned. I keep seeing that comment everywhere. Every time I see someone post of Asajj Ventress, you go in the comments of someone saying somehow Asajj has returned. Just like Palpatine, somehow Palpatine has returned. And we've all been waiting since the trailer for Asajj to pop up, and we're wondering, are they going to explain how she's alive? And they don't, but they kind of acknowledge it at the end, which I'll get to. But I really like this episode, even though we didn't necessarily learn too much, or, I mean, the story on its own was great. That's some of my favorite stuff in Star Wars is when we get the whole kind of Jedi training because Fennec Shan sends Asajj Ventress to find the batch because they're asking about the M count, the midi-chlorian count, the M count, and they don't know what it is, but obviously she does, and she starts testing out Omega to see if she is one with the Force. Does she have a high M count? And she starts putting her through these, random Yoda type Jedi tests, and she's trying to test her balance. and she sends Omega to go pick some kind of flower on the top of a mountain and come back in a certain amount of time. And then during all that, the Badge finds out who she is, Saj Ventress, the assassin, and obviously they confront her about it, and then she pretty much goes 1-on-3 against them and just whoops them all with ease, pretty much. And they start blasting at her, and then she whips out her lightsaber. It's yellow, and it was just cool to finally see something like that in the Bad Batch because I don't think we've gotten that before in a while, at least since season two. Um, but just seeing her interact with the Batch and Omega, I really liked. Um, Once Asajj, she takes Omega out into the water to tell her to reach out with the Force. And again, that's some of the best stuff about Star Wars to me, in my opinion. Um, just like the whole reaching out, letting go, use your mind and feel instead of trying to force everything, no pun intended. And of course, Omega, she can't do nothing. She's barely learning about, what exactly is going on. But then Asajj reaches out into the water and she pretty much like summons all these little fish swarming around the boat. And then another big, huge sea monster pops out and they get into it. And then at the end, Asajj is able to kind of use her force to tame the creature and help them escape with the batch at the end. And she's about to peace out, but she says that Omega doesn't have a high M count from what she can tell. And the batch knows that she's lying and well she is. So Omega does have a high M count, which definitely means that the Empire is gonna try to do something with her blood to help clone Palpatine, Snoke, whoever. Um, and then before she walks off, gets in her ship, the batch asks her, "You're not afraid of the Empire coming after you?" And she walks off with the line saying that she's still got a few lives left, which is a nod to all of us wondering why exactly is she even alive in the first place. And her being alive doesn't bother me at all. I never read that Dark Disciple novel, but I do know the story. Um, and I do think it matters for live action or animation to carry over what was set up in previous canon books, comic books, whatever. I do think that's important. But from what I remember, Asajj Ventress was kind of buried pretty much on Dathomir. And if we all know what happens on Dathomir, she probably got resurrected somehow with the Night Sisters' powers, which is completely possible within Star Wars nowadays. So that's probably the easiest explanation was that for whatever reason she was resurrected by the Night Sisters of Dathomir, and now this is where we see her now. I think that's pretty much the quick, easiest explanation that they could give. So I'm hoping that we see more of her for sure. I hope that wasn't just kind of like a one-off, and now she's gone. Unless that's some type of way for us to get reintroduced to her, and then eventually maybe getting her in future projects. But yeah, the Bad Batch right now, I think is really good. I think it's easily the best season so far. Well, sadly, the last season, but it's definitely lived up to my expectations for sure. Kind of sticking on the whole Star Wars thing real quick. Forgot to mention last week because I remember hearing about this that the Acolyte, um, they're only going to be 30-minute episodes, which I think is a total bummer. I never liked when we get these expensive live action shows of such a big property and they're only able to pump out these 30-minute episodes. And I think there's only going to be 8 episodes in total of The Acolyte. And I think that's also why they're dropping 2 on the same day on release to kind of give us a little bit more extra. The first episode's always a setup, and it's probably going to be the least um, impactful, I'm assuming, of the whole series. So giving us 2 off the jump is a smart idea, but I don't think it's ever smart to just give us 30-minute episodes of live action. You could do it in animation, you could get away with that, but when it comes to live action and the money that they're spending on these shows, 30 minutes just does not do it. It's not enough. Um, you run the risk more of everything feeling rushed, not making sense, and just overall giving people less content to digest and talk about. Um, Especially if you're going to be doing it, you know, every week, 1 episode a week. Um, I just think it's kind of a total bummer. And I also heard recently that, God, everything that's been going around with the show has just not been that positive, has it? Um, Leslie Headland, the showrunner, everyone was talking about how she brought in these groups of writers in, and at least one of them is said to have never seen Star Wars before, ever. And of course, once that gets out, everyone's already like, why are you bringing in anybody on this project who has never seen Star Wars before? And I definitely see where they're coming from. I feel like that to a certain extent for sure. It does make me that much more nervous about the show, to be honest. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it's the biggest deal ever, but when it comes to Star Wars and these projects, I think it's always a better idea to get people on the team who all kind of understand the property and understand the lore to an extent and just overall kind of is something that you just kind of have to feel and it just by have seen these movies and lived through them before. Um, but I know there's been people that have made projects before that have never seen the property and it turns out well. Um, the creator of Andor, he wasn't the biggest Star Wars fan at all, but I think he listened to the right people enough to kind of give him these pointers and he did the storytelling, but he also had these people working with him that were helping along with putting in these little nuggets of feelings that just what Star Wars is. And I'm hoping that's what the case is with the Acolyte. But again, just the vibes of the show are not good. Um, Still cautiously optimistic, which I think we should all be. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for this week's episode, Sunday edition. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. I'll be back on Wednesday. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see what goes down within the next couple of days. Follow me on all my socials. Link will be in the description. Posting comic books on my IG and Snapchat. New releases, variant covers, all that. And yeah, much appreciated, y'all. Gonna be pumping these out at least twice a week now. Promise. But until next week, y'all stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.